So I watched Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. You like that speed? That was quick. These movies are both incredibly, incredibly good. Welcome back to the MCU Marathon that I am doing, starting at phase 1 of the MCU and going all the way back through until Doomsday, so I can review it one day. Honestly, at the rate that we're going, I might not ever catch up. We're not doing the TV shows, we're just doing specifically the movies, so it's not too bad, but honestly, I really need to hurry these up. But anyway, Iron Man 1 and 2 are incredibly good movies that I didn't remember being so good on a rewatch. I remember the first Iron Man probably being the best movie in the first phase, except, like, that's not the Avengers, because of course that's like the big capstone of phase 1 is the Avengers. But I think that the first Iron Man is the best superhero origin in phase 1 of the MCU. I don't really remember or know how I would rank it across all of the MCU of, like, Black Panther's origin story or his first solo movie is super great. And I don't, I think the Guardians are really good. So there's, other introduction stories for other heroes that might be better movies, but Iron Man 1, I don't remember it being as good as it was. So I'm not going to do spoilers. If you don't know who the villains are of Iron Man 1 from, I think, 2007 and Iron Man 2 from, like, 2010, it's not on me. I'm letting you guys know I'm not doing any spoiler stuff. If you haven't seen these movies, go do it, because Doomsday is coming out and we all want to be in the loop. And if you're not in the loop, get in the loop. Um, so Iron Man 1. So this movie is so good. I honestly, no bullshit, give this movie like a 10 out of 10. I didn't remember having as good of a time as I did when I rewatched this movie. It's fucking great. It's really, really good. Also, just a quick thing that I kind of want to make the connection to, about how in Spider-Man Brand New Day, a lot of the criticism was that it felt like police propaganda with Spider-Man using, like, facial recognition against people, like civilians, like stuff. Like, I wasn't super well into that. Like, I didn't really read a lot about that, but I see what people are saying. But watching this first Iron Man, this shit is military propaganda, bro. But it's not a bad thing. Just how I really like the Transformers movies, the Michael Bay ones. They're really fun and enjoyable movies, but the military is like fucking, yeah, you know what I mean? And that's what this first Iron Man feels like, but in a great way. I really like this movie. And in Iron Man 1 and 2, the villains aren't even really what is making me enjoy these movies so much. Tony and Pepper's dynamic and their dialogue and his quick wittiness and her responses and her being very independent and very smart, and they're both articulated. I love their dialogue. I love it. Literally every time that they're on screen, it's fun. It's fun to watch. It's enjoyable. This kind of writing for these characters, and they're so much fun to watch. I know I just said that, but, like, I just keep thinking about any time that, Tony is, like, clicking around on his doodads and stuff, and Pepper's talking to him about serious shit, and he's, like, walking away or not really paying attention, but their back and forth is so good. I just really enjoyed it, like, so much. Like, Obadiah Stane, he honestly, I don't even know if that's his last name. I know it's what, Obadiah, is it Stane? Like, ST, or is it, like, I don't know. Anyway, the villain of Iron Man 1, he's not a bad villain, and he has a connection to Tony Stark and, like, kind of a reason for what he's doing. I think he has a better reason and motivation as a character than a couple villains I will talk about in a different movie in this review. I'll let you figure that one out on your own. But yeah, I think he's a good villain, but for me, all of the greatness in this movie is all from Tony and Pepper's relationship. Also, in the beginning, where he's making the Mark I suit in the cave, I think that those scenes are really fun. Also, how did they not realize that he was building this fucking suit? They have a camera on him 24/7, whatever. But the thing I want to talk about with Iron Man 1 that pertains to the rest of the MCU that I found kind of interesting is, if you know me, or if I have talked about it, or if you've seen me on stream, or even maybe in my Captain America review, I think I said this for the first Avenger, but Tony has always been the best written character in the MCU. That's how I feel. I don't feel like they have a better written character than Tony from Iron Man 1 in 2007 to Infinity War Endgame. That character arc, or that character's journey, I guess it's not really an arc, because this is kind of what I want to say about Iron Man 1, is the feeling guilty for profiting off of war and selling military weapons to be used in war. Tony kind of comes to that realization in his first movie. Now, him trying to fix his past mistake with profiting, such as Ultron, trying to put a defense system around the world. I know that that kind of more ties into Avengers, but I wanted to point out that, like, I praise Tony for having this crazy character arc where he starts out as this kind of like asshole who is super egotistical, and then ends as like a feels bad for the damage that he's caused. That still is an effect, but him feeling guilty about the Stark missiles and stuff, he kind of fulfills that arc in that movie. And like, so I always praised him for like, oh, this crazy change, but he kind of changes very quick after what happens to him with his own weaponry, obviously at the start of Iron Man 1. And it's very interesting because obviously Tony is still growing. I'm not saying that, oh, Tony has his arc in the first movie and he's the same character for the rest of the MCU. Not saying that. I'm just saying I felt like it took a lot longer for him to get to the kind of not liking the military side, like his military, or his profiting off of the military weapons. But in the first movie, the second that he realizes that the villains have Stark technology, he is like against it. He shuts down all, like, the second he gets back from overseas, he immediately shuts down all the war stuff. And so like, I just thought it was interesting. It was something in my mind that I had forgot that Tony kind of flipped on early on, but he still grows and he's still great. But yeah, I also, in this movie, I don't really, it's a weird thing with Rhodey being recasted, because in Iron Man 2, Rhodey is very much a part of the military, right? But once the MCU moves on, it's hard to remember. Like, I often forget that Rhodey is the military guy, the Tony's like best friend military connection in Iron Man 1. I know that it's because he got recasted, but even when he gets recasted in Iron Man 2, him being in the military is like a very big part of the movie. He actively takes one of Tony's suits to hand deliver it to the military so that they can figure out how to make their own. But after that point and going forward, anytime Rhodey is featured, he just feels like Tony's best friend and not really like this guy that was super big in the military. I don't know if I'm necessarily explaining that correctly, how like or articulating what I mean by that. Again, I understand that he is the guy from the military, but in like Civil War, or yeah, it's specifically Civil War, I guess, because he's not really in a lot of the movies, like, if I can remember. But in Civil War, when he gets hit by Vision and like Tony is like very distraught, he doesn't feel like the guy that was in the military however many movies ago, if that makes sense. And it's not, again, it's not a criticism. It's just more of like, oh, I forget that Rhodey has like incredibly big ties to the military. Maybe I'm LARPing and I am like, people are like, how could you forget that about his character? But like, I just recognized War Machine, and I like, whatever. But yeah, Iron Man 1 is super good. It's more, it's the introduction of Tony, and it's so good. It's the start of what this character is, but it's super well done. And I like all the action sequences. Also, for the early on Iron Man stuff, I really like that his technology is progressing. Specifically, what I mean is, in the first movie, you have him trying to learn how to fly, how to put the suit on, calibrating the suit, and and then when he wants to put the suit on, he has to have the robots that like do individual pieces. And then in Iron Man 2, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but this is more to push my point home after watching both of these movies. And then in Iron Man 2, he still needs those drones to take the pieces off, but he's slowly making it more like easier to put on. And then in in the racetrack scene in Iron Man 2, the suitcase is so interesting because he doesn't need to be at home to put the suit on now. Do you know what I'm saying? His technology is slowly growing where, okay, shit, I can have it in a suitcase and then I can put that on. And then this goes into Civil War when Bucky is going crazy or whatever. He's got the wrist and he pulls the wrist on and he or like he pulls the wrist over his hand and then the suit slowly grows. What I want to say is I miss like the nanotechnology and stuff is cool when it gets to that point towards Infinity War and Endgame. The nanotech is cool, but I miss how clunky and real the first two like the first two movies felt with their suits. Like when Rhodey and like Tony take a step, it's like they're like in it. It's so you know like the nanotech is in line for him slowly growing, right? Because when he gets to Infinity War, he's so much smarter. He's got shit figured out. He doesn't even like even by the end of Iron Man 2, he doesn't need the he's always upgrading his like heart thing. I can't really think about what it's called. So it's slowly after a certain point, he doesn't even need to worry about it. So with the nanotech, it's like it's in line with him always growing. But I miss how weighty these movies feel. And Iron Man 1 specifically because it's the early 2000s, everything like all action movies are kind of shot the same and color graded the same. Like when he's in the cave, it's like green lit and it feels like Saw kind of like Saw always kind of like those movies just from clips I've seen always have like cool lighting, but like when he's in the cave building the suit there's like lights, but because the walls are like a dark black slash green, it like lights green in there and it's so all of them those movies feel the same ish, but it also encapsulates that time and I like it a lot. I don't know. It's nostalgia for sure, but I also think that this movie is really good. I don't care. I would give it a 10 out of 10. It kind of feels crazy to give Iron Man 1 a 10 out of 10 because it is in line with other superhero origin stories like Hulk and Captain America, which I don't think are that good. But I really like the first Iron Man. Is there anything else that I want to mention? Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. One of the greatest lines in all of the MCU. So fun. This movie also sets things up really well. Like incredibly well. When Tony makes the newest version in Iron Man 1 specifically of his heart thing, he it's on the table or whatever, and Pepper's like, "Oh, what do you want to do with this?" And he's like, "I'm probably just gonna throw it out." And she saves it as a cute little like thing between them, or I can't remember. Does he give it to her? No, no, no. She gives it to him because he basically tells her to throw it out, but he saves it. And that obviously comes back into play later on when Obadiah takes out the heart thing and is letting Tony die. And he has the old one that Pepper saved. Basically, Pepper saved his life. Also, really good setup with the earlier in the, when he's figures out how to fly and he like ices up or whatever, where his suit basically falls or whatever. Great setup with Obadiah Stane and setting up that's how you defeat him is like, or it wasn't how he defeated him, but you know he didn't calculate for the freezing up because Tony had already went through it. It's like this movie has great setups and payoffs, and the Tony is great and Pepper is great, and even though again like I said it's hard to imagine that this is the same Rhodey, I do like Rhodey in this movie. And yeah, the villains are or whatever, and you know, there's the action is good. It's always very cool to see Iron Man like blowing shit up, especially earlier on when there's nothing really to contest him. Like when he blows up that tank with that little missile, like it's a cool scene. Something that Ariel, my wife, brought up is that they use a lot of rock music for Iron Man compared to like any other movie that I can remember, and she really loves that music, like the AC/DC and all. Like they play like they do a lot of needle drops with like really good songs that like I like. So like maybe that's another thing that's adding on where like I feel like even in the Cat movies, even though like Winter Soldier is probably my favorite Marvel movie, to be fair, the tone and the feeling of Winter Soldier are a little different because like Winter Soldier is a spy thriller. Like, dude, there's a lot going on in Winter Soldier that's really good. But like they don't really use like known song drops, and I think that that's a good thing for that movie. But on a rewatch of Iron Man, it feels so much more like comic booky and like hell yeah, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But yeah, so I am for Iron Man 1, I will give the best character award to Pepper because she also might get it in Iron Man 2, but um it's Tony or Pepper. It's one of those two. Honestly, it's both of them together as best character. They can split an award. They both deserve it in this movie. They're the highlights of these movies. And from Iron Man 1 and 2 that I've watched, they are the highlights. So now Iron Man 2. So just rewatched this one. I actually took notes for this one. Iron Man 1, we kind of just threw on in the background. We've seen it a bunch, but I was like actually locked in and interested. With this one, I wanted to write down my thoughts and feelings. I'm not a scholar or anything. I didn't write some like thesis or anything. I was in my notes app just typing my thoughts, things that stuck out to me, line deliveries, funny lines, things that I didn't really like or understand. Like more of decision wise, like I understand the plots of the movies, but I'm just saying um but I also wrote down like questions or things that I was looking for and see if they got answered or whatever. So yeah, I'll just talk about my notes and specifics that come to my mind. So Iron Man 2. So this has to do with the Whiplash and Hammer, Justin Hammer stuff. These two villains feel really undercooked in this movie. And honestly, I'm going to be so real. I kind of don't care. I'm not going to say this movie is as good as the first one. I think the technology and the CGI is most definitely better. Like the CGI of Tony's technology and this stuff is much better. But I think this movie is like a 7 to an 8 out of 10. Like I actually think this was a lot better. I used to say to Ariel that like if I had to explain it to somebody, Tony and Iron Man are complete opposites, even in the way their movies are. Tony has a great first film, and the other two are kind of weak or bad. And Cap has a weak slash or bad first movie, but the rest of his two are like the best, right? Iron Man 2 is not that bad. 3 I remember is kind of shitty. From what I remember, I mean, I'll talk about it when we get there, but Iron Man 2 is a lot better than I was giving it credit for. It's like almost an 8 out of 10. And again, I'm gonna be annoying. It's because of Tony and Pepper. It's more of the same great from the first movie, just with kind of corny, not corny, but like kind of villains. They're just villains. I was really looking, I didn't remember Ivan's motivation in this movie. The Whiplash dude. I was trying to remember his motivation, and his motivation is basically that his dad helped build the arc reactor and he wanted to use it to sell it, basically to make money, which is kind of crazy for Howard Stark to kick him out because he wants to make money from it. I don't really know if they dove into the kind of character that Howard is, but like Tony is profiting off of it, off of his weapons and stuff. So why is it like the arc reactor that's not even a military weapon, that's just a resource? Whatever. Anyway, but Ivan just doesn't feel like this old man that got kicked out by Howard like got slighted hard enough. Like he helped with the arc reactor or whatever, but his motivate Ivan's motivation just didn't feel good enough to me. For him to spend his whole life or the rest of his life after his father died on making sure that Tony's image is destroyed. Like it's good enough for me to not be like out of the movie, but it's not like Killmonger or like Thanos level. And again, it doesn't have to be. Not every villain has to be this like grand thing. But like when I was watching it, I was just like there was a point in this movie where Pepper and Tony are talking and stuff is going on with Rhodey. I forgot Ivan was in this movie. Like he's working on his own suit with Hammer and they cut away from him for like 10 minutes. And when they cut back, I was like, oh, this is still Iron Man 2. Like, I don't know. I don't know. That was on me. But yeah, the opening is kind of weird. It basically just shows Ivan's dad dying and him making the first Mark 1 Whiplash suit. And it's like, I guess, like, I don't really fucking care. Like, you could probably cut this shit out and I would still rewatch this movie. You know what I mean? You could probably cut Ivan out and I'd still watch this shit. It's kind of important, but like the Rhodes trying to get the suit for the military and the people of Congress, like trying to force Tony to give it up or, talk about it as a military weapon, that shit is more interesting to me than the villains in this movie. Even though Justin Hammer is a part of the military, kind of like the military's contracting him to make the suit and whatever, but like Ivan and Hammer could have just been replaced with don't replace Ivan, just get rid of him. And Hammer could have just been literally any third party with no face, like just, oh, this company that the military, you know what I mean? And I would have still been as engaged, in my opinion. I do want to say that even though I don't like Hammer, I think that he's like a fun character or like funny. I specifically wrote down in my notes here when Tony hacks the TV screen to show all of the footage of the other countries trying to recreate the Iron Man suit, and he shows the Hammer, Justin Hammer's experiment, and the suit, the Iron Man suit that the guy's in, like fully does a 180, but only on the torso. And Hammer has a quick line where he's like, "I just want it to be known that the guy lived," or whatever. And I thought it was funny to be like, because you think about it, if a person is in the suit and his arms are here and the torso spins like this, but the legs don't move, that dude just got snapped in half and is dead. So like, it's funny because you wouldn't have thought about it unless he said it, and then you think about it and it's kind of funny kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm just going to go through my notes and kind of just bring up specifics. But yeah, I think, just generically, it's more of the same with Pepper and Tony. I love it. I love the technology. I love that the weights feel heavy. I understand that throughout this movie, Tony is dying, and he's basically trying to live up his last bit before he goes, while he's also trying to find a cure. This is also the introduction of Black Widow, who a lot of the scenes that she is known for, like that scene in the hallway where she's like flipping around these dudes and like busting them on their ass. Like, I often forget that that's not an Avengers scene because it's like just generic guys that they're beating up. So you know what I mean? Like, I know in Avengers they're fighting aliens and shit, but like, I just, like, I don't remember that being from Iron Man 2, and it is, and it's good. So it's like, damn, this thing that she's like remembered for, or one of the cool things that she did, is in this good movie. I specifically wrote down the lines of Tony and Pepper when Tony is walking around and Pepper's following him. And basically, in this movie, he makes Pepper executive of the company, which is such a good thing for both of their characters, for him to be like, I don't want to deal with it. And also giving her like, not only a reason to stick around because I really like their relationship, but like a reason why she is also cold to him, because she has a lot of shit that she is now dealing with that he kind of threw on her. So, but anyway, he's walking around and she's telling him about stuff before she is executive, and she's like got the sniffles or whatever. And it's just a cute little thing that she's like sick and he's talking about it. And he basically says, I'm going to need you to wear a surgical mask for the rest of the time that you're sick. And she goes, well, that's rude. And then just keeps talking. It's like little back and forth between these two characters is what makes these movies so good, in my opinion. And maybe honestly, because I remember seeing Iron Man 3 in theaters with my grandmother. So I don't think I've rewatched it much or liked it, but maybe because I'm rewatching it and I'm really liking Tony and Pepper. I remember that the third one, Pepper is like in trouble and Tony has to save her. So maybe I'll really like Iron Man 3 more just because I really like Tony and Pepper. But we'll see when we get there. At every turn in this movie, Tony actually just bitches and chads the shit. He mogs the shit out of Hammer in every scene that they're in together. And it's really annoying because like Hammer has no backbone. And so like obviously he's the villain, right? He's going against Tony. We want Tony to win, but he's not like, you don't even really not that you want to root for the villain, but more of like he's not interesting to watch on screen. I know I already said that they're lackluster and I don't really care for them, but like I'm just going through and like I remember the scene of where Hammer is like having a conversation with Tony and Tony's walking away and he's like following him around talking to him. And it's like I'm just not interested when Hammer's on screen. So making it like Tony is obviously way cooler than Hammer, and that's kind of his thing, is that like Hammer has this big company with all this money, but he's kind of a dweeb. But it's not like a dweeb to where it's entertaining, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's a weird complaint or thing that to pick up on, but I did. Having Tony drive in the race is very silly in my opinion. I don't get it. I understand that he's dying and he's a very rich person, but you would have to be a professional driver to drive on one of these races because it's F1. There are people who like Tony can't just get in a car and drive a Formula One car on a Formula One race in one of the biggest races. You know what I mean? So it's like, why would he be able to get who said yes to this? But like maybe he's got money, whatever. When Whiplash shows up and he turns the suit on and it like dissolves his clothes on top, or like zaps him and it burns off and you see it. Super cool moment. Another one that I didn't really like. I know that I've been praising Tony and Pepper, but when Happy is hitting Whiplash with the car repeatedly, and Tony's like, "Give me the suit," and she's like, "I'm trying. Give him the suit. Give him the suit." And he keeps backing up and hitting, and the doors closing. That's like the kind of comedy that the MCU I feel like does too much of, that people started to pick out, because like the quippy stuff with Tony, it's his character. Not every character needs to be quipping, but that specifically, like for me, I was like, I don't really find it funny. Like Tony just died. Also, Whiplash cut up a couple other cars. Those people are probably dead. He sent like a car into the stadium. Like, this is not a moment to really be having that kind of joke if you want me to be immersed, as in like, yo, this is serious. Also, Tony is getting his ass whooped. And then, like, he should not be even coming close to losing. Like, he has repulsor beams, he has flight, Whiplash has electricity on a whip. Like, there's no reason that he should really be losing. And then he's like, at the end of losing, and then like it shows his face in the suit, and he's like, and then just wins. It's like, okay, like, okay, all right, I'll let it slide. Maybe that's a nitpick, but it's like one of those things where it's like he didn't do anything different. He just locked in, I guess. And like that's a fine explanation, I guess, but it's like, okay, whatever. Okay, so this is the scene that I was talking about earlier that made me actually forget that Ivan even was in this movie. Is when it's the scene when Tony is basically looking through his dad's old videotapes, and basically Howard has a conversation with Tony telling him that he believes in him and all this stuff, and basically gives him the answer to how to help his heart and save his life, essentially. And it's a really good scene. And then it's also Tony figuring out how to make it. That's all one scene. He figures out the solution, then he actually goes and makes it and figures it out. And then he yeah, and then it cuts back to Ivan, and I was like, oh my god, I completely forgot that this is the one with Ivan in it. Like, it's actually crazy. But the Howard and Tony stuff really hit, because Tony needs that, and especially knowing what happens in Winter Soldier, and then also what happens in Endgame when he gets to go back and actually have a conversation with his dad. It really pays off, and it's stuff like this that is the reason I'm doing this rewatch and also taking notes, is because I forgot about this scene of Howard saying, Tony, you're the next thing. So in Endgame, all those years later, when Tony is talking to Howard, obviously it's still a great scene and a still feel good scene, but it's not like, this scene doesn't pop up in my head as like, oh my god, this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a forgettable scene, but I forgot about it. And so rewatching it after having all of the knowledge all the way up to Endgame and everything actually is like, it's a nice new lens to view it on. You know what I mean? All right, let me wrap this up. Basically, quick few things that I want to say. Sam Fury, Jesus. Nick Fury, or Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, is fucking amazing. He's so good. That scene where he's just looking at Tony, and Tony is like trying to crack jokes, and Tony, or Nick, is just not moving. Super good. Yeah, once the fight between Tony and Rhodey in Tony's apartment is super good. The music choice is super fun. Also, another great setup that I mentioned, like with Iron Man 1, is when they do the blast and it explodes. That directly ties into the ending of the movie, which is super good because it's not something that you think would happen again, but it does, and it's really good. Yeah, once War Machine becomes War Machine and gets decked out and all this shit, oh my god, is this movie fucking amazing. I absolutely love it. Tony and Rhodey versus the Hammer drones. Like, dude, War Machine ripped a robot in half using a wrist-mounted fucking minigun, bro, and ripped it in half from top to bottom. It's peak. It's so fun. It's cool robot shit doing cool robot shit. Tony does the big spin with the lasers and cuts everybody in half. Dude, it's so good. I really like this ending of this movie. And then Ivan shows up in his big suit, and it's a 2v1. Ivan literally shows up and like dies in like 3 seconds, and who cares? He was a whatever character. But I love War Machine. The red, the silver with the black, with the minigun on the shoulder. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. But anyway, we're gonna give okay. I'm gonna give Rhodey the character award because I don't think that he is praised enough in this movie, especially War Machine's suit. Yeah, is it War Machine's suit probably carrying? Of course it is. But Tony and Pepper, I don't want to just keep giving them the awards over and over again because they're gonna get it. Like those two are my favorite of these movies. But so we'll give it to Rhodey. But yeah, I rate this movie like a 7.5 or an 8 because I love the robot shit. I love the Tony and his dad shit. I love Tony and Pepper. And, you know, the villains kind of suck nuts. But what can you do? You know what I mean? They might suck nuts sometimes. That's what happens. But anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good day.